Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just a quick point, and I think that the Honorable Kevin Washburn is tired of me saying this, but obviously we now have the report. We are waiting to find out what the administration's fiscal response is to that, and we look forward to seeing the presidential budget, because we hope that it reflects the great need that we see for law enforcement and for law and order in Indian country. And so just lay down my marker. I'm waiting. We'll wait and see. My questions are mainly for our U.S. Attorney, Tim Purdon. Obviously, those of us who have done this work over a long period of time realize that we can, in fact, continue to invest resources, continue to do what we're doing, but so much of what happens is related to substance abuse, drug and alcohol addiction. In fact, a rate of over, I think it's 220% of all, over any other DOJ statistical average is what we see in Indian country related to alcohol. And so let's not kid ourselves. And because we have a chronic addiction issue, we have recidivism. And that recidivism not only takes a lot of prosecutorial effort, but it continues to add to the despair and the dismembering, really, of the community. So my question is, what are you doing to promote reentry programs in tribal communities in order to combat recidivism?
Mr. Heitkamp, reentry is a huge challenge. 95% of the folks that my AUSAs prosecute and send to federal prison, 95% of them come back to the reservation at some point. This is an issue that's very personal to me. Before I was U.S. Attorney, Senator Heitkamp's aware, I was in private practice, and I actually did some public defender work and defended folks charged with crimes in federal court. And I had a client once that I had represented, and he went to prison, and I ran into him at the halfway house in Bismarck 7 years later. He's coming out of prison, and you never know how those conversations are going to go, but he was happy to see me, and I said, "Oh, how are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm doing well. You know, I'm at the halfway house. I've got a job. I've got a sponsor. I'm in an AA group. I've got a sponsor," and things were going well for him in Bismarck. But he's not from Bismarck. He's from Standing Rock. And when his 6 months were up at the halfway house, he got in the car, went back to Standing Rock. 3 months later, I got a call. His probation's being revoked. He's being sent back to federal prison. And I said to him, "What happened?" He said, "Well, you know, I got back to Standing Rock, no job, no AA group, no sponsor." And we see that over and over and over again. So reentry has to be part, besides just the prosecution side, we have to get involved in reentry. And so one of the challenges we have, we don't have halfway house facilities where inmates can do their last 6 months of BOP custody on the reservations. They're doing these halfway house stints hundreds of miles from their home. So that's not something I can impact. But what I can impact, and I've worked hard with in the department, I actually chair the Federal Interagency Reentry Council's working group on reentry in Indian country. We've got to figure out how to make, reentry is a big part of the Attorney General's agenda right now. What about that Indian country piece? And we need to do more. I'm working in North Dakota, working closely with the court, with the probation office, to see how we can work together to provide some sort of support for those folks coming back.
And I would add to your challenge reentry of Native American kids who come in and out of juvenile justice facilities and then have absolutely no support when they return home. Just a quick story. You know, when I started as Attorney General, I wrote an opinion. It was based on a Montana court case which said, you know, state's attorneys don't have jurisdiction in certain situations. We went, along with the state court officials, went to the Department of Justice, or not Justice, but we went to the courts and said, look, we need to expand our part-time magistrate to be a full-time magistrate. And our vision was that that magistrate would actually be a circuit rider and would take court onto the reservations so that we didn't have transportation issues. You have a clear vision of how this works. People can come down and watch. It's not hundreds of miles away.
Right.
You know what? That never happened.
Right.
And so often what we have is we have no court system that we're working with right on site. So what can the Attorney General do to expand federal court presence on reservations along with collaboration with tribal courts?
So what can the Attorney General do? He can't do as much as the AO of the U.S. court system, right? But in North Dakota, we've worked creatively, and when we have a sweep, and we've done this, has occurred. We had an Operation Prairie Thunder at Standing Rock, where we had a sweep of some folks accused of drug crimes. The magistrate came down to Standing Rock. The federal magistrate from Bismarck came down, held court behind a table in the basketball in the gym at Standing Rock, and we as U.S. attorneys need to be working with the courts to try and do more of that sort of thing, of bringing the federal court, making it relevant to somebody in Fort Yates, what goes on, or well, Fort Yates isn't that far, but Belcourt, what goes on in Bismarck, 200 miles away, it just creates such great challenges all the way around.
Well, and I really encourage you to work within the court system. And I think we should create an expectation in the Congress that, look, you know, we understand you like your federal courthouses and that you've got a lot of security, but you also have an obligation here, especially related to major crimes. When you bring it and people can see that there's consequences, that has an effect too.
Absolutely.
So we'll continue to work on the issue of access to justice by locating courts where people live.